without further ado, I'd like to present to you Little Orbit CEO, Matt Scott. How you doing, man? You all right? So, firstly, the first thing I have to say is, again, thanks for your time today. Really do appreciate it. I know we're kind of a little bit short, and I know some people would definitely in the stream like a longer Q&A session, but with time constraints, not necessarily possible. But we'll try to get through as many as we can. The first thing I want to kind of address here, before anything else, is to kind of think about what sort of brought your interest towards this game. I mean, you've come at this from sort of a completely outside angle based on your previous track record, and looking at what you've done in the past. What was your sort of fancy in kind of tackling something of this scale? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Long, somewhat painful view into the game, and sincerely, it was a bit heartbreaking because you're sort of watching the slow death of this thing, and thinking, you could help it. Is my sound okay? Is it?
It should be, yes. I
okay.
Just the very first start of that, I forgot to turn the audio back on. I turned it off.
No
and then, yeah. In any case, like you're saying, you met him at a previous conference, that sort of thing, and
yeah,
quite concerned about the slow
I actually
death
got
of
to
it.
work. I got to work with the development team. Who are fantastic, a group of guys, and you sort of, even though I have some limited, admittedly limited experience playing the game, it's a very unique game. It's a difficult, hard, challenging game. You've got to learn some different skills. This is not it's not an average shooter. It's not a sort of a clone of Counter-Strike or something else. You've got recoil to manage. You've got leaning skills and trading weapons for various conditions. And so I just thought it really, honestly, it was out of really watching this thing not get the attention it deserved.
And I think quite a lot of people in the community can agree, because as you're probably aware, and what you've no doubt seen from people's posts, is that it's been quite a wasteland in terms of communication for the past couple of years. But I think everyone can appreciate that you've decided to take on this mountain of a task. And although it may look a little bit sort of treacherous at the moment, I'm sure we can expect to see some nice things. So, sorry, go on.
I was going to say my biggest fear was we were going to come out and say, hey, we're going to make these changes, and that no one would be listening. No one would care. So hopefully, clearly that hasn't been the case. Yeah.
Oh no, definitely. It's a very dedicated community, which is what I like the most. It's a very sort of passionate community about this game, because a lot of people do kind of understand the potential behind it. So, the one that I was very surprised that we would be tackling first, but I think the one that everyone is interested about, the anti-cheat system and bans. So, will you be making any changes to cheat detection? From there, will you be looking to unban players from the past, so from fair fight bans, that sort of thing? And can we expect to see bans broadcasted in-game in the future like it has been with fair fight?
Yeah. This was the number one question. Yeah. And in all fairness, I think you and I had a discussion of pulling this down in the order, because we thought, we're going to start with this big chunky question. Yeah. It's a bit heavy, and it's look, I think the community is super divided on this question.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially the second part. So let's deal with the first part.
Sure.
Will we be changing cheat detection? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Okay. We have spent the last couple of weeks working with BattleEye.
Okay.
And I think anybody who's done a little bit of research, I know we did our research, they are, in my opinion, the market leader in client-side anti-cheat. Mm-hmm. They handle Fortnite and PUBG. It's a great group of guys, and we've already, I would say, we're already about 3/4 of the way through that integration. So,
okay.
One of the reasons we set this date was to get far enough along so that we could make a concrete, statement around, yes, this is the system we're going with. And we also wanted to announce the new support site and the new forums, but I think anti-cheat is definitely if not the most important thing that we're going to try to do to help the game.
Yeah, and I think that's it's kind of cool that you've actually gone for BattleEye, because a lot of people in the community were also kind of edging towards that suggestion as well. They're kind of either easy anti-cheat or BattleEye, and a lot of people, I think, for a long time now, after sort of the limited success that Fairfight provided, it was kind of nice to see that we're kind of going back to a client-side based anti-cheat again, which I think is going to be quintessential for a game like this.
Yeah, and I think, again, full disclosure, and this is, we mentioned this in our privacy policy got updated today, but we're keeping Fairfight. It's in the background. We're not using it to do auto bans. I think the problem, and certainly there is a lot of hate for Fairfight out there. In fairness to them, that system has not been tuned in over a year. The cost of Fairfight was not paid. As the company was struggling, it just sort of sat there unmaintained. So, in my opinion, we have an internal anti-cheat. We have this server-side anti-cheat, which is Fairfight, and we're implementing BattleEye. So BattleEye should be in the very next patch that we put out.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. That's based on how the chat's going, they're up in arms and probably celebrating like crazy. But I think more importantly, on the opposite side of this, just going to the second part of this question, will you be looking to unban players in the past? Now, before you get started, there has been some hearsay in the community. Some people have been coming back, and some people have noticed some old accounts coming back and they've been unbanned. But are we going to see sort of either a full reversal of all of those, or are we looking at a case-by-case basis?
Again, this is such a divisive subject. I feel the need to kind of explain this one a little bit. The last 2 weeks has been extremely busy for Little Orbit, mostly working through the legality of GDPR, making sure we're actually doing what we need to protect our players' privacy and getting all those set up. But one of the things I did during the 2 weeks was I actually sat on some of the customer support calls. I worked through some of the issues with customers. We had some auto bans with Fairfight that I sat on, went through the logs, looked at the various systems, and I can unequivocally say there were improper bans. Okay. There were bans that did not deserve to be put in, and it just ended up being kind of an artifact of the interaction with our internal cheat system and Fairfight. And so, knowing that, it is really hard for me to leave those bans in place. So, really, that's for the side of the community that, has said, oh my gosh, please don't bring back all these cheaters. I do want to say, guys, there have been subjective and improperly enforced bans, and that's not what we're all about. So I feel like this is two-pronged. So to answer your question, yes, we are going to unban, I would say, a majority of the player base, not all, because there are other things that we ban people for, and certainly credit card fraud and illegal activities. There are other things that those bans will stay in place. They have to. We will not tolerate credit card fraud and other things, but specifically the bulk of them for cheating. We're going to give the community the second chance it needs, I think, where we're going to go through, we're going to unban. That's not going to happen immediately. So hopefully, players will be patient with us. We need to get the next version out. So, we've dusted off all the cobwebs. We've brought some of the licenses up and upgraded them. And, there has not been a new patch for the PC in about 9 months. So it's quite a bit of work getting those gears turning again. But once the new version comes out with BattleEye, then we will be unbanning, I would say, most of the player base.
Okay, that's exceptionally good news. And I think just to quickly, because I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking we're never going to get through half of this.
All right. I'll go faster.
No, you're fine. But I'm just trying to think, just to make sure we can cover some more topics here. But very briefly, will bans be broadcasted in the future like they were with Fairfight? Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a super toxic practice. I will say this: I view banning as a failure. It's not something to be proud of. It's not something we enjoy.
Okay.
We lost a player, so it's never a fun moment for us.
Okay, yeah, I think that's. If I may make a small comment about here, it was kind of weirdly handled previously, as you may be aware. There was the naming and shaming sort of approach
Mm.
in game, but you weren't allowed to say anything about it on the forum. So it was quite a double standard in that regard, and I just think the whole system was handled poorly. But I think people are going to be very happy to hear that maybe their account will get a second chance in the future.
We have done something in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw this out there for players. If you are currently banned, you can log into the forums now.
Okay.
The new forums have been set up so that even if you're banned in game, it doesn't automatically remove your access to post or participate in the community. We are working on the banning policy itself. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to start with some temporary bans. And really, that's an effort for us to tweak. It's an opportunity for us to tweak and make sure the system's working correctly.
Yeah.
It would be a shame to immediately permanently ban a bunch of people and then realize that we just did it again. So, my commitment to the community is we are absolutely going to do our best to clean up the cheating problem, but we also want to be fair about it. We want to be consistent about it, and we want to make objective bans if we have to. They should be unquestionably, a situation that needed to be banned for.
Okay. Well, that's good. Thank you. Moving on to the next kind of big elephant in the room. Can you give us kind of a rough roadmap on what you plan on working on first? I mean, a lot of people are kind of thinking, well, they really should be working on the engine upgrade to 3.5. And as you mentioned in the forums before, or at least on my stream, I believe, you've got a team in Australia kind of planning out the process for Unreal Engine 4, which is in the distant future. You've got the old people from the Reloaded team working on migrating the PC version to 3.5 to keep it sort of on level with consoles. But then you're also doing some other stuff which you've just discussed as well, and then some other changes to the back end in terms of fixes. But what's the main priority on that list? Like, what's the first thing that you want to get out the door first after the anti-cheat, obviously?
It's a great, but this was the number 2 most question, or maybe tied with number 1. I tend to group these a little bit, and there is, as you mentioned, there's a lot going on in the studio. We've got multiple work streams. We've got people working on the platform of Gamers First. We've got people working on APB. We've got people looking into Fallen Earth. We've got the team in Australia. So it's a lot to manage, as you can imagine. This first project I have called infrastructure, and it's, you can think of it as just rebuilding the foundation of everything. We went in and felt we needed to improve the way we communicate with players, and we needed to give them ways to communicate back to us. And so this sort of infrastructure project began with new support, new forums. It includes getting the anti-cheat systems in and tuned properly, and it will it'll end or wrap up, I would say, with us doing our first patch, clearing the cobwebs, and implementing two-factor authentication. And this is something where it's not very sexy, but I feel like protecting people's accounts, making sure people don't get hacked or lose access to these characters they've invested so much time in is important.
Okay.
The next project is what I'm calling unification. So then about really completing the 3.5 version of Unreal, completing the unification and bringing that code base together. There's a lot of technical debt there where things were implemented for console but not implemented for PC, or there's features left on PC that weren't implemented for console. So I would argue it's near impossible for us to put new content in the game in its current state until we unify those code bases and get into a release cycle. And we're going to have an announcement, I think, in the next week or two about a little more about this, that will help shed some light on how we're going to do that. And I think it'll be a positive announcement, but that'll be clear on kind of how we're going to pull the two code bases together and what some of the things we're doing there. I think beyond, we do have Unreal 4 working in parallel. Beyond unification, I kind of have this critical mechanics project that is us taking a hard look at some of the long-standing mechanical issues in the game. And so we've got some other questions later in the stream. We can talk about that. And then I would say right beyond that, or maybe even in parallel, will be a minor content update where we want to crack open those new content systems, get something we announced in my open letter, do a new weapon or two, do just a new outfit or two, kind of get back into the design and content cycle of putting new stuff in the game.
Okay, yeah, I think,
and then beyond that,
sorry.
it's major content. So
oh yeah, of course, yeah. I think
new map, new mode.
Excellent. Sorry for kind of interjecting that. I think that's also what I think quite a lot of veterans of the game would also agree with. Let's get the foundations done first. Let's then get everything up to the same sort of level, and then we can move forward from there. But I think again, I think you would find as well that it would be kind of tricky to add content to the current version of the PC just due to how cumbersome the code is, and how one thing completely unrelated could break if you make one little change. So it's nice to hear that the engine upgrade is definitely something that's coming basically right after the sort of bundle of account security and general sort of gameplay management is kind of implemented. So it's nice to hear. So thank you for that.
It's quite far along, actually. I mean, and this was the other thing, having watched at a distance for all that time, there are so many pieces, new pieces that are at the 90% mark, literally like sitting there waiting to be finished.
Yeah.
So that's exciting for us. Hopefully players will get new stuff.
I think hearing that at least the engine upgrade on PC, from what I've heard, is that close, I think people are going to be very excited to hear that it might be not say soonish, but definitely when you get around to that point, it's not going to be that much longer to wait for it, which is quite nice. Moving on. Another big one that a lot of people are worried about, new company, new policies, new ways of approaching the sort of microtransaction model of this game. So with that in mind, will the Armor's pricing in the future be changed? And if so, how? This is kind of a big one because, as we've seen, prices have inflated ever so slightly and slowly over the years, and VAT's been added in for legal reasons, of course. But people are now realizing that to get an account-wide weapon for their character, or for every character that they create, they're spending at least $40-50 just for one weapon. So how do you look to change this in the future, if at all?
It's interesting because I spent a lot of time looking at this too. I mean, you see it on the forums, people say, it's not pay to win, it is pay to win. In my opinion, I don't think APB is pay to win. I think there is but there is a stigma. And I think, while I feel like the weapon, there's some advantage there, but I feel like you could take the worst weapon and give it to the best player. You could take the best weapon and give it to the worst player, and the best player is going to win every time, hands down. It is a game of skill. The weapon doesn't make that big of a difference.
Okay.
However, I think, that stigma exists for a reason. And in my opinion, we do need to go through and balance the cost of Armor. We're not going to change the fundamental mechanics. It's not going to suddenly not be a free-to-play game. No. But I think we need to go through, you're right, some of the pricing is a little obscene. And I personally would like to bring that, down to a balance of that players just don't feel gouged. I don't want anyone. I think that's why the stigma is there. It's not necessarily that it's pay to win. It's just that some of the stuff is a little egregious. It's just a little too expensive. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think the thing that you mentioned with pay to win is quite in line with what a lot of community members who've played this game for a long time kind of also agree. There are, I'd say, a few outliers. There's one or two items in the Armor's marketplace which are actually behind a wall as a loyalty reward. So once you've spent enough money, now you can get this weapon, and there's no other way to obtain it. Again, something to look at in the future, as it were, and something to kind of address, hopefully. But
we have hired back one of the designers from the game, and the intention is to also, like what you mentioned, there's a couple things that are definitely a little squirrely there, and also try to factor in some of these back into the quest lines or back into the actual in-game, so you can get them in-game somehow.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. Even if it's like a leased version or however you'd like to approach it, then that'd be nice. Okay. So I think the one that you have been talking about a little bit on the forums, you've mentioned it's coming, and well, today's the day. So I think this is one that we definitely need to address just to keep people up. With the upcoming changes, or now more realistically, with the changes to the code and conduct and terms of service, what areas are going to be scrutinized the most? Namely, will the in-game behavior be moderated more in the future? And kind of what's your stance on the in-game nudity that sometimes people get away with, so excessive obscene symbols and clothing?
Sure, sure. Well, I think first and foremost, you're going to see us around. And I think players hopefully have already seen us around, right? I mean, I think having
so too. Yeah.
Having GMs in the game, being present, talking to people, it shouldn't be a big scary thing. It's just we should be present. We should be there. We should be running small little events in the game or monitoring this stuff. My personal feeling on nudity in general is nudity is great. It's amazing, but there's no place for it in our game, right? I mean, why are you bringing that to something? It just feels inappropriate. So I think our stance on nudity is going to remain the same. It's not something we want to see in the game. I think what I do love about the game is the creativity. Oh, yeah. And we have one of the best customization systems in the world. That was another big draw to this game for me, was just how creative the players can get.
Yeah.
And while we do have to moderate those symbols, right? We don't want any hate symbols or racially inappropriate symbols or symbols that are offensive. I do want to encourage the players to knock themselves out. I mean, like, I love all of the crazy things they do with their characters and the symbol editor and stuff. So I feel like if we're present and we're in game and we're just paying attention, I think that problem kind of solves itself.
It does. I think that interaction has been something that's been sought after quite considerably by the community, and we've never really seen it. It's happened previously quite sparingly, but I think now with that more community GM interaction that we're going to hopefully see in the future, it's going to actually, well, hopefully placate some of the problems that have happened in the past, but it's also going to make things a lot more comfortable for the players to kind of get into. And it's also, I think it will just start moderating itself essentially, rather than having to be, clamping down. But there'll still be a few outliers, I think. Yeah.
I would hope that we're looking to get coverage on all servers all the time. That's the goal.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good to hear. So something that's kind of still important to the community, some people still do talk about it quite a lot, is de-threating. So the process where you participate in a mission because your threat is too high, or either gold or something like that, and you don't really want to go up against those kind of players. So you deliberately not play the mission, you stay back, or you commit suicide, or whatever you do to lower your score, to thus then drop your threat level. And once it's reached a certain point where you can then enter the district with the less experienced players, you go in and you get easy matches. So my question to you is, what are you going to be doing to hopefully tackle this phenomenon, or are you looking to tackle it, and if so, how? But are there going to be changes to the threat system to accommodate this or to assist this?
Yeah, this is definitely one of those systems I mentioned earlier in the sort of what I'll say critical mechanics.
Yeah.
And I think it has to get at a minimum, it has to be altered. At a maximum, it needs to be scrapped and rewritten.
Okay.
But I think there's just a fundamental flaw with tracking your progress in that short of a time frame. The ability to kind of increase your status in a way that you can go after a newbie zone or shoot back up.
Yeah.
That should take much longer, or we should remove the exploits. I mean, it's as simple as that. In fact, in general, as a company, if an exploit exists, then we should be trying to fix it. I think that we can only say so much, hey, don't do this. And it is against our terms of policy. You will get banned if you exploit.
Yeah.
But shame on us for leaving the exploit in for so long that it becomes, it has a name. People can look it up. They can look how to use it.
Yeah. Sorry, if I may just interject for 1 second, I'll be right back for 30 seconds. I just need to quickly go to the toilet. I do apologize. I'll be right back. 1 second.
Quickly now. People are here. I'm gonna actually flip over the chat. How's everybody doing today? You guys are great. That is scrolling so fast I can barely, but thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do sincerely apologise for the interruption there. Clearly an unprofessional Q&A. Oh, dearie me, I do apologise, man. Right, so moving on, because we do need to kind of get through these now, because we are running out of time. The next one, a little bit less important, but I think good for the community to kind of keep track of what's going on. Will there be a live stream dedicated to development updates, maybe future Q&As? Is there going to be sort of like a devlog that people can tune into to see sort of the active process on what's being worked on in the game and what you plan on doing?
I love this idea. Absolutely. Yeah. I think I think it's just fun to watch the process. I am a developer myself, but I think B, it's just a great way to show progress to the community. I mean, I think it's just a great tool. So we're absolutely going to do this. I plan to do more open letters, and I think I'd love to do sort of a vlog or something where we can show video of what we're working on.
Okay, that's nice. I think that's going to be. I personally think that's going to be brilliant because. Again, that constant sort of feed of updates, even if it's not that much, it's just to see how you're getting on, how you're doing, how you're tackling this obstacle, basically. So, kind of some of the veterans of the game have been looking at some of the changes made, namely to the login screen and the loss of licensing, I believe, for some of the music. So, I think for some of the veterans here, they want to know, will the original login screen, along with some of the previous music within the game, be making a return? Because it's all about the fresh.
I actually have had this the track from login screen. I went to YouTube and put it on loop. I'm a big fan of that screen. I'd love to bring it back. I do need to look into the music rights. I need to see what we still have access to there. But as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to see that screen come back with the same music.
It'd actually be quite nice as well, because it was a nice login screen. The music with it was nice and somber, and it was kind of preparing you for what trouble you were going to get yourselves into as you logged in. So it was kind of a nice change of pace, but especially with the new login screen, while it's really nicely presented and it's nice, it's kind of a bit too hectic to really stick true to what APB is. And while it is a urban warfare, there is, it's not all out, state of,
I don't think we need a loading screen to a loading screen. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think if we can minimize that sort of load time, that'd be nice. So I'm sure this is something that people are very interested about, because once unification happens, there's going to be some big things that need to be looked at. But most importantly, the poor performance on the consoles. So will you be addressing the poor performance and optimization on the console versions of the game?
Absolutely. Okay. I think, in fact, and I'm going to just openly apologize to the console folks. We posted the letter, and then we ended up doing all these conversations on the forums in the social discussion group. And without realizing, or at least it wasn't obvious to me, that those forums are split, and the console players can't really participate, or couldn't really participate in the forum where we were talking. And so you'll notice in the new, we've merged that. We've gotten a sort of console distinction between the various channels there. So I think that, look, the consoles, those optimizations are long overdue. We'll absolutely be doing as part of unification, and as sort of critical mechanics, be going in and optimizing how those games play, making them run better. There's a fair amount of issues I'd like to fix there.
Okay, yeah, I agree, because I think with some people who know it, I don't want to go into too much detail with how that process came to be. Eventually, it was kind of a rushed out release, unfortunately, and there were several hurdles as we were leading up to the release. So it would be nice that the console versions get a proper sort of workover and brought up to the appropriate standards that we like to see on the sort of current generation of things.
I agree.
Thank you. So a smaller question here, because obviously the toxicity in the game, as you know, kind of goes from one stage to another, and or one stride to another, and some people do get kind of a bit flummoxed by it. And one solution to this was to sell extensions to the friends and ignore list, which little bit not exactly the best way to go about it, but yeah. In any case, with this in mind, are there any sort of are there going to be further extensions to the Friends and Ignore list, or are you planning to change it altogether? What's your kind of approach to this?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to the dev team, there is a cost to to us storing that list, right? Albeit small, but it can't be infinite.
Of course.
Charging for more slots, like it's already a problem that breeds toxicity, and then you're trying to monetize that just feels like absolutely the wrong approach. So I think what we're working towards now is just increasing the slots, but not making anybody pay for it. I think again, our goal is to have a fun and fair and safe game to play. It can be challenging, it can be competitive, but the Ignore list, I think, is an important mechanism for kind of protecting yourself in game.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way they monetized it was kind of very disrespectful to the community, and I think it was really poorly handled. And I think it was definitely better ways of going about it. Well, that's kind of the main list here. So I need to know sort of how much time do you reckon you have left, or do you really need to head off?
I'm good. We've got people on stream. I hate to cut it off, so we'll keep going, and I'll look at my watch here. I'll give you a 5-minute warning here when we're getting close.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we're going to go into the extra questions here, and I think a lot of these are going to be something quite interesting. Now, a system that's been neglected for quite some time in the game that used to bring some kind of joy and excitement and a different aspect to it. So you've just completed a mission, you've done really well, you've gotten the win out of it, and oh no, you're Prestige 5 or Notoriety 5, and now you've got to fight off the entirety of the district, including your friendly criminals or enforcers. But more to the point, this can happen in a mission, and then people outside the mission can kind of come in, take you out, and then you lose potentially that round altogether. So the point, what we're trying to get at is, what do you think about the Prestige Notoriety system or the bounty system, and do you plan to make any amendments to this?
I mean, yeah. So this is one of those we'll say critical mechanic things we need to look at. This and maybe one other element where if you're in a mission, people can stand in front of you and sort of grief you. I think the idea of interfering with people who are already in a challenge, right? You've got an opposing side, you've got a time limit, you've got things you're working on. That needs to be fixed. I think that the idea that their heart was in the right place, they had this really cool idea, but it definitely needs some tweaking and or redesign to kind of eliminate the feel bad moment, So yeah, it's something that we do plan to look at. Hopefully in the critical mechanics kind of space where we can kind of make a little tweak and kind of just level out the game experience.
Yeah, so in phase 3, this is kind of like a phase 3 sort of approach here, and that kind of ties on to question 4 in regards to the distant future. This has been something that people have been worried about because obviously the less populated servers like Han, Necrover, which was the Russian transfer from the original team in Nova. But in the distant future, will character server transfers be possible?
I think this is something so let's give some context. Character server transfers, I mean, they are problematic, and they're problematic from a technology standpoint. What happens that I've seen when you transfer a character from server to server is, because the characters are so heavily customized, there's loads of opportunity for things to go wonky, for the character to literally come over looking different, or some of the customizations or some of the symbols to be missing, or it is a very, very nuanced process. So it's not something that we typically can just open up and do, not yet. So I think we're going to work on that system, and I am a big believer in allowing as many people in the community to play together. I think that right now the community is very fragmented, and certainly with respect to Han, that is a low population world server. We are absolutely looking at trying to help them, if only for the moment. Look, I'm going to take the bullet on that, or I think Gamers First needs to take the bullet on mishandling where those servers went and slowly killing that population. So in the near future, now it's not going to be the next 30 days, but hopefully in the near future, we're going to give all of the Han players the ability to migrate to Citadel and play with other players. The Russian server is a bit of a challenge because there's some unique things that those players have. So we have to balance that. But I would love to see in the future an open sort of character transfer system that, maybe you can't use it all the time. Maybe there's some limits around it, but I would love to see the players be able to congregate and have a great experience. It cannot be any fun on Han right now where you're playing the same, 25, 26 people over and over and over.
Yeah. Sorry, just to quickly clarify, because I think the stream chat also kind of picked this up. Do you mean Han moving to Jericho or Han moving to Citadel? So
I apologize. Sorry, I said Citadel. Han moving to Jericho. You're absolutely right.
Okay. No, that's fine, because I think people were just a little bit upset.
I was thinking the Russian server that sits right alongside Citadel.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so once, because I'm aware of it too. They had to bring over the Innova customized code, as it were, like the changes to the weapons and whatnot. So migrating them to Citadel is going to be definitely a hard challenge, but maybe in the distant future. Again,
oddly, I had plenty of Russian players reach out and say they that stuff if they could be migrated, into the regular Citadel server just to play with, more players.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, that's that's good actually. So another one that's kind of interesting, because this is going to be, I reckon, one of the trickier ones to tackle in Phase 3 for you, which is a trading system. Now, presently, as you know, if you get a Joker Mystery Box weapon, you get the legendary item, you can then put that on the player marketplace for other people to buy, so there is that trading sort of thing. But with any terms of clothing, cars, that sort of thing, there's no proper way to guarantee that a trade's going to happen. So someone could pinch the item off the marketplace and then never give you the money back or the proper amount that you're owed. So there have been several player-made systems in the past, such as middlemen and whatnot, to try and facilitate that transfer to ensure that there is a fair trade. But there's nothing really been done on the side of actually making a trade system. So the point is, do you plan on sort of looking to make a proper trading system into the game, or is it even possible?
This one is tricky. I'm going to answer both ways. Okay. I would love to solve this problem. It's a case again where the fact that you can scam a player is absolutely a problem. Like you shouldn't be able to do that. We should have enough infrastructure in the game to properly, have the item held and the money held and that transaction should all happen at the same time. The problem that you get into is once you create a secure trading platform, you get into other issues, which are third-party sale off-site, and you end up with people using your system to transfer money or goods, and it certainly when we get into the consoles and Sony and Microsoft, they very much frown on that. So we've done it in the past. We know some of the pitfalls. It is a system I want to fix. We just need to be very careful about how we do that. Okay,
yeah, I didn't realize it was actually going to be quite basically a trap-ridden sort of road towards like a trading system. So it's actually kind of interesting that you're able to shed some more light on this, because I thought it was going to be sort of maybe not an easy process to code, but kind of a little bit simpler once you got further down the line. But now that you've mentioned that there are quite a lot of pitfalls that can happen in this process.
The biggest problem is when you have a free-to-play game where people can come back and re-roll, and you have a trade system. It really, let's say a secure trade system, it opens up a lot of credit card fraud. So that with the other games we've done, we lock the trade system to a certain level to make sure that you've been playing the game for a while, that new people can't just come in, charge a credit card, and then immediately trade everything off their account, which is systemic. I mean, we took, we helped another company with a game that they had, I think, 12% credit card fraud, and we were able to go in and modify systems and put in trade locking and some other things that brought that down below 1%. So this is a case where you're right. Like the coding's not the problem. It's more just the system design to make sure it can't be abused.
Yeah, and subsequently the management with it as well, because you're always going to have some outliers. Okay, I know we kind of discussed this before the stream. I know it's not really one you want to talk too much about because I know it's a little bit tricky. The next one I had here, if you're okay with discussing this, is what kind of things do you want to look at maybe implementing or improving to kind of bring the competitive scene into its own sort of fruition in the game? I know it's a tricky one, so...
I will say this. I can't actually answer that question on the stream, but
Okay.
but I can say this. We are actually in active talks and working on this. This is something that I think would be great for APB. It was designed for it, and I think there's a lot of players that would love to see a more competitive environment. So I'll just leave it at that. There's you guys can all point back to the stream and go, oh, that's what he was talking about. If it happens, and if it doesn't, then you can say, oh, that
shout at me for asking the question, basically going, Kemp, why did you do this? No, so I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one either. It's the first one on the other questions list, just as a heads up. But there was a system a while ago to try and entice new players into the game via inviting them into the game, and then the player who invited them gets rewards. Obviously, that does sound like a nice incentive. There were some unique items with that, which people are concerned about, because now that it's gone, you know, where are those items? You know, are we going to get them? That sort of thing. But more importantly, are you looking towards potentially reintroducing the refer a friend system? And if so, do you plan on making changes to it, and as sort of like a direction here, kind of towards letting the player who was invited also get some rewards for playing with his teammate that invited him, that sort of thing?
I love the idea of a refer a friend system. I think you have to be delicate with these, especially, you know, in these kinds of games, because they can easily unbalance things if those rewards are too much. At the heart of it, though, we need to regrow the audience for APB, and so it's absolutely something that we want to do. Honestly, it's not something we put a whole lot of focus in yet. We've got some other things to get right, but I think that certainly on the roadmap is the effort to build in mechanisms that incentivize our players to help us grow APB.
Okay.
By the way, I did see in the stream, someone was mentioning the keys that got passed out that caused a number of bans. We will be unbanning those players too. I know they were linked to some credit card fraud and some other things, but again, I don't. Looking back over the logs, looking back over that situation, I don't think we can hold those players accountable. Obviously, it was a murky situation, but they will be included in the unban.
Okay. I think the problem is I may have been partially to blame for that, because I did a big giveaway at one point and people donated keys to, and I obviously didn't back check this or anything like that, but from what we heard, yeah. So a lot of people got these and then they got locked out of their accounts, forced to pay $40 to complete the transaction, and yeah. But it's nice to hear that you're looking to kind of reverse that and hopefully let people in.
Yeah, I honestly, I think, and I don't, that sort of policy of, in theory, if you commit credit card fraud yourself and you need to bring your account back into balance, we understand that. That is the right way to handle it. You need to pay for, something that you got and it's already on your account. You need to bring it back into balance. This case was such a different scenario. It wasn't handled well. So for me, look, I apologize to those players. Not all of them are, let's say, scot-free or innocent. Many of them knew at the time they were trying to collect these things and exploit, but it wasn't handled well by Gamers First.
No. Okay, that's fine. I'm just quickly looking here to see what kind of next one we can talk about. There's a few that have come up in the chat here that I kind of want to potentially address. I think the oh God, I've already forgotten it. Yes, so another one that kind of people have been bringing up is the Joker mystery boxes, the loot boxes that are in the game that you can only pay with real money. And in relation to the new legislation that's in Europe, are we going to be able to see, or are we going to see any changes to those Joker mystery boxes, whether they be removed or the chances written out and clear as crystal, that sort of thing?
This is a very complicated issue. Obviously, you mentioned the legality of loot boxes. We have taken a really hard look at what's happening in Europe around this. Certainly there's some US legislation that's being built. I personally am a fan of how the Netherlands is handling it, in that they're being very specific on the timeline to be compliant, the ways you can be compliant, and their goals in who they're protecting. So they're basically, the Netherlands is saying you can have loot boxes. You just can't make the rewards tradable. because the minute they're tradable, it becomes gambling. People are now paying money to get a huge reward that can be traded away for monetary value. And I think that's a simple solution. And we've already started to, unfortunately, take the rewards from the loot boxes and make them not tradable, which means we're incompliant and we don't need to change that system. It may mean we also need to bring the price down on them, or we need to make some adjustments to our economy. But I think there's, it's a good system in the game. And I think as much as people have railed against this monetization mode, I don't think they're going away anytime soon. I just think we need to be fair with our players.
Okay. Another one that's brought up that is very important, because I'm sure you've seen some of the other streams, and they play on this kind of low config shader that they have, where it brings the graphical quality down quite substantially. So there's quite a few configs out there, but I think what people are more interested in is seeing if you're going to allow, say, shaders to adjust the crosshair, or are we going to see a custom crosshair in the game in the future? But to a side, are we going to see you allowing third-party shaders and sort of configs to, just change the way the game looks to make it more performance, to increase the performance, or just slightly tweak the sort of post-processing effects that are in the game?
I feel like it is a super slippery slope to say we're going to allow, custom shaders or changes to the game. Now, having said that, I also feel like we do need to make these options available in the game. Like, we need to put them in. We need to absolutely allow players to change the color of the crosshairs for colorblind folks, or for other things to make them more readable. I think the idea of being able to run the game in a low accessibility, a low processor mode, so people can play on lower end machines, that's something we should be putting in. I appreciate that the community has done the work and created the advanced launcher, and they've created these other ways to run the game. But I feel like if we do it, A, the game will look better, so that when they're streaming, it'll represent us better. But B, it also kind of comes from us. It's been done properly. It will not be flagged by our cheat detection. It's a slippery slope for us to say, sure, you can start messing with the components of the game.
Okay, that's good. Just looking at the response there, everyone's going, no shaders, no. And then suddenly, yes, you're going to add stuff. So I think they're pretty happy about that. There are some people kind of bringing up questions here about stuff that we've already covered. So I'll say to you, ladies and gentlemen, this will be rerun on Tuesday and Thursday next week. And I believe there's going to be a YouTube video on the APB Reloaded official YouTube channel as well. So you can tune in for that. We will have a transcript ready for that as well, hopefully in the near future. What's another thing very quickly, just to add on to that last question, you may be aware of the APB Advanced Launcher that was indeed confirmed by the previous community manager to be an acceptable third-party tool. Are you looking to keep that sort of ruling the same, or are you looking to kind of change your opinion on this?
I'll tell you, that bears more research. What we're going to do is take a look at the advanced launcher and run it against BattlEye, run it, and just we don't want to improperly ban people for using something that we've made a ruling on. So my feeling right now is, please don't use it, because we don't want to trigger any weird things. I'd rather do some research, figure out if there's ways for us to take those features and put them in the game quickly, or if we come out and say it's okay, then we need to have done the research. Sure, it's okay.
Okay, that's good. How much time have you got left?
How about one? I am down to my final 5 minutes.
Okay.
One more question, if you like. I know I will say this, by the way. I do. Some people talk about Fallen Earth, and we are absolutely paying attention to you guys. I know this stream is for APB, but I want to acknowledge they're in the stream, and we're not ignoring you guys.
No. I'm sure in the future you'll look towards kind of opening up with them and getting all their suggestions down, maybe even doing a Q&A with someone from there. But I don't want to push that on you, because obviously...
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, yeah. Looking pretty appropriate for the occasion. No. So, last 5 minutes then. I think the one that people are very interested in. Again, this is another phase 3 question. But a lot of players are curious to the future of the weapon balance in this game. I know you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but Do you plan making in this phase 3? Do you plan on making changes to the weapons in the near future? So completely shifting the meta, that sort of thing. And I think the one that people really want to hear about is: are you going to change that HVR?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Look, that one's come up a lot. I mean, I spent a lot of time reading the forums, and we've just brought on one of the designers who worked through these systems. I think personally, and this is just my personal opinion at the moment, so it may change.
Sure.
I think that the weapons are fairly well balanced. There are some exceptions, like you mentioned.
I'd agree. Yeah.
But for the most part, I do see people mention, oh, the weapons are so unbalanced, or they mention a couple here and there. But in general, I think they could be a lot less balanced than they are. So the risk of going in and just, being a sledgehammer is there. And I'd rather be a scalpel and come in very surgically and make a couple little adjustments here and there. I mean, and it could be as simple as literally removing, one bullet out of a casing, so you can get one less shot off. I mean, I think some of these things could just be tweaked a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
And then, of course, others maybe need a little more adjustment. But we are up for doing a weapon balance. I think it's overdue. Just go through the whole thing and make sure. I saw an HVR that fires a sledgehammer.
Maybe that's something in the future of a weapon that you can introduce.
Yeah.
Then very, very quickly, maybe a yes or no answer. I don't know how much you know about this. Are we going to see daily events and sort of seasonal events appear in the future again?
We are admittedly we're behind the gun. So
yeah,
I would love to do daily events. I'd love to see better quality, holiday or special events. It's terrible when those things become stale and sort of rinse and repeat. It feels like the whole system's on autopilot and no one cares. So
yeah,
we're gonna do our best to get to that stuff. It is a little further down the roadmap, obviously, right? We want to get a better foundation in place, but certainly it's something we're looking at.
Okay, that's brilliant. And then very quickly from me, we need to clear up the confusion. Are you related to Barry Scott?
I will never tell.
Okay, brilliant. Well, Matt Scott, thank you very much indeed for your time. I really do appreciate it, and I think all the community appreciates it as well. We'll let you get on with the rest of your day, but again, thank you very much for basically an hour's worth of Q&A, kind of really going over the limit there. I hope we haven't ruined the rest of your day and kind of your timetable. So,
no, I thank you for providing the forum, and I appreciate everybody that showed up.
Yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for showing up as well. Really do appreciate it a lot, and I hope there's definitely been some good information there. But again, Matt Scott, thank you very much. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. Bye for now.
Cheers.
Oh, blimey. Hold on a sec. Do the thing. Do the thing.